Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling a cultural narrative that's just so deeply ingrained in our society.
Hmm.
The powerful and honestly often painful myth that a child is somehow set up for failure if they're not raised by two adults.
Yeah.
And this idea, it carries this immense emotional weight. I mean, especially for single parents who are already juggling an incredible load.
That weight is so real, and we have to acknowledge that right up front. When we talk about single parenting, we're often talking about a situation that involves, real grief.
Of course.
Grief over losing a partnership or the dream of what you thought your family would look like. And that sense of loss is completely valid, even when leaving was absolutely the right choice.
Absolutely. But our mission today is to step past the mythology and even the personal grief and really focus on the objective data. We're doing a deep dive into the research to find out what truly predicts a child's well-being. And the mission is clear. The research shows that while single parenting is a huge challenge, it is also deeply honorable. And critically, that kids can and absolutely do thrive when they have certain key things in place.
Things like stability, warmth, and community support.
Precisely. We need to shift the whole conversation away from the structure of the family, just counting the adults in the room and
Yeah.
put it squarely on the quality of the environment. So the real question is, what are those specific protective factors that let a kid feel safe enough to flourish?
And this is where the evidence just completely dismantles the myth.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The core idea, are two adults always better than one, no matter what?
Well, the research delivers a really critical nuance here that frankly gets lost in a lot of public debate.
Hmm.
When you analyze child development outcomes, everything from, cognitive skills to emotional regulation, the defining factors are safety and stability,
Yeah.
full stop. So a stable, loving, single-parent home isn't just, comparable to a two-parent home. It is often dramatically healthier than a two-parent home that's filled with chronic conflict or instability.
That distinction right there between structural stability, so the number of adults, and emotional stability, the quality of the home, that feels like the single most important insight of this whole deep dive.
It is.
Can you elaborate on what kind of conflict we're actually talking about here?
Yeah. So when researchers track outcomes, they find that children exposed to high-conflict marriages have consistently worse long-term outcomes than kids from low-conflict single-parent homes.
And worse outcomes isn't trivial. What does that actually look like?
We're talking about higher rates of things like anxiety and depression, what we call internalizing behaviors,
Okay.
and also externalizing behaviors, so like aggression, problems at school, and in some cases you can even see measurable lags in academic performance.
So it sounds like the constant exposure to that hostility, it fundamentally rewires a child's internal landscape.
It does. I mean, think about it. Chronic fighting literally raises a child's baseline level of stress hormones. It keeps their nervous system perpetually on high alert.
Mm-hmm.
The mere presence of two adults means nothing if those adults are constantly at war. In fact, it introduces this profound unpredictability and threat. And this is why divorce, or separation, though it's painful,
Of course.
it can actually be a highly protective act for a child when it removes them from that environment. The separation itself becomes an intervention for stability.
So the message to you, our listener, is just this profound reassurance. Your home doesn't need two adults to be a great home. It needs consistent caregiving. It needs emotional safety and predictable routines.
That's it.
The quality of the caregiving trumps the quantity of the caregivers every single time.
And building on that idea of quality, we have to talk about this fear that so many single parents have around gender.
Oh, absolutely. My son needs a man in the house.
Exactly. Or a single dad worrying that his daughter needs a woman at home to develop properly. It's this pervasive anxiety.
So what does the science say about that? The gender configuration versus the actual quality of the care they receive.
Decades of research are incredibly consistent on this. Children need caregiving qualities, not specific genders in their parents.
Okay, so what are those qualities?
Well, first, it's consistent warmth and emotional responsiveness, someone who is tuned in to their needs.
Right.
Second, predictability and clear age-appropriate boundaries. This is what experts call authoritative parenting.
Right, that's the sweet spot. It's high warmth, but with firm, consistent boundaries. Not authoritarian, which is all boundaries and no warmth.
Exactly, is that balance. And kids also need to see healthy conflict resolution being modeled for them. They need to see their caregiver regulate their own stress.
To see them handle it.
Yes. And above all, they just need to feel seen and heard and safe. And none of those qualities, not one, is tied to a parent's gender.
And maybe the most powerful proof we have against this whole gender configuration argument comes from the research on LGBTQ plus families.
Exactly. The comprehensive studies on same-sex parent households have shown again and again and again that their kids fare just as well, social, academically, emotionally, as kids of heterosexual parents.
Which is such essential evidence.
But it gets even more interesting. In some areas, these children actually show better outcomes.
Better. Wow. Okay, in what areas and what's the theory behind that?
So researchers often see slightly elevated scores in things like empathy, tolerance for difference, and communication skills.
That's fascinating.
And the working hypothesis is that in families where parental roles aren't just dictated by traditional gender scripts, the parents have to engage in more deliberate, high-quality communication about roles and emotions.
They have to build the model themselves.
They have to build it. And those kids often develop more resilience just by navigating a world that sometimes questions their family structure. It just powerfully reinforces that relationship quality is what matters, not gender.
So if you're a single parent worried about gender role modeling, the research says don't panic. That modeling doesn't just happen inside the house. Not at all.
A healthy sense of gender can be modeled by the whole village, right? Aunts, uncles, coaches, teachers, mentors. Your child's world is so much bigger than just the immediate household.
And that community network is just indispensable, which, it leads us right to the next critical question. If the family structure itself isn't the problem, why do some statistics associate single parenthood with, risks?
Yes, this is so important because those are the stats that are so often weaponized to create shame and reinforce the myth. So if it's not the structure, what is it?
The variance in outcomes is almost entirely accounted for by structural barriers and systemic vulnerability.
Okay, unpack that.
Much of the so-called risk comes not from a lack of parenting ability, but from economic strain, from instability caused by moving or changing childcare, or from ongoing conflict with the other parent.
So these are societal problems, not personal failings.
Overwhelmingly. Let's just look at the economic reality for a minute, especially for single moms, who are the majority of single parents.
You've got multiple factors converging. First, the wage gap. Single mothers still earn less for the same work. Second, childcare costs are just astronomical.
A whole second rent payment for many.
Easily. It could eat up a third or more of a single income. Then you have housing costs. A single income has to cover what two incomes would normally share. It just compounds and compounds.
And that instability is relentless.
It is. Because when you combine a limited income with unreliable childcare, a parent is far more likely to face job instability, missing work, losing a job, not being able to take a promotion. And that cycle of instability in housing, jobs, and routines, that is what research links to poorer child outcomes.
Not the fact that there's only one parent?
Not the fact that there is only one parent.
Yeah.
So when you see data linking single parenthood to poorer outcomes, what you're really measuring are the effects of economic oppression, not a broken family structure.
Wow.
The structure just makes the family more vulnerable to the economic shocks that already exist in our society. The solution is support and policy reform, not shame.
That reframes the entire narrative from guilt to empowerment.
Okay, so let's transition to resilience. Based on all this research, what are the strongest, most actionable, protective factors a single parent can focus on?
Okay, so we can review the key predictors for well-being. First and foremost, the presence of at least one stable, caring, and emotionally responsive parent. Consistency is the magic word here.
And the second factor?
Maintaining low conflict between the parents, whether they're co-parenting or they're fully apart. I mean, this is so critical. If a separation successfully ends chronic toxic conflict, that separation is functionally a protective act for the child.
Got it. And the third factor goes back to what we said earlier about predictability.
Yes. Stable routines and stable environments. Predictability is basically psychological safety for a child. When they know what to expect, bedtime, mealtime, the rules, their nervous system calms down. It frees up their brain to learn and grow. And finally, the fourth factor, the supportive networks, the village. But this can be really scary for parents who've maybe been through betrayal or harm. How do you balance being vigilant with needing community?
It is so important to validate that hypervigilance. It's a normal adaptive reaction for a parent who has had to protect their child. So, acknowledge that vetting people takes time.
Be patient with yourself.
Yes. But that external support network is crucial for both the parent and the child. I mean, research on programs like Big Brothers Big Sisters shows they significantly improve outcomes. These mentors act as powerful buffers against stress.
Let's talk about the parent's well-being for a second. Because when you're the only one, the pressure to just murder yourself is huge.
It is, and it's a destructive myth that just leads straight to burnout.
Yeah.
We have to embrace this mindset that self-care is not selfish. It is the single most important protective factor you can offer your child.
Say that, Ann?
Self-care is a protective factor. Rest, joy, therapy, community. These things directly benefit your child because of one core finding. Regulated parents raise regulated kids.
A calm, present parent fosters that secure attachment that builds resilience.
More than any specific resource or family structure could.
Right.
So the advice isn't sacrifice yourself for your kids, it's sustain yourself for them,
You have to put your own oxygen mask on first.
both metaphorically and literally. And, just to circle back briefly, we have to acknowledge that these challenges are layered. For Black single mothers, for Latinx, indigenous immigrant communities, they face systemic barriers like racism on top of everything else. Their struggles are systemic, not just personal.
And their resilience is just a testament to their incredible strength in the face of that.
It truly is.
So, to summarize the core takeaway for you, the listener, resilience in children is the norm, not the exception. The structure of your family by itself does not determine your child's future. The research points again and again to the quality of the caregiving, the consistency, the warmth, the safety, the low conflict as the true architects of a thriving childhood.
And that really leaves us with a final critical reflection for us as a society. We've established that the root causes of instability for many single-parent homes are largely structural wage gaps, childcare deserts, systemic oppression. So what would happen if policymakers and communities focus their resources on reducing that strain?
On things like universal childcare or supporting parental mental health.
Exactly. What if we did that instead of continuing to promote the cultural myth of the perfect two-parent structure?
It demands a total shift, really, from societal judgment to genuine, robust support. It really makes you question where our collective energy should be going to make sure all kids can thrive.
Indeed it does.